Okay, so have you ever heard of Charles Bukowski? Maybe not. But you might know his tombstone. It just says, "Don't try."
Yeah, don't try. It's pretty bold, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you think about his life.
Exactly. I mean, by most standards, he was, well, kind of a massive failure for a long, long time.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking like poems nobody read, terrible jobs, just endless drinking, these awful apartments.
Relationships falling apart.
Yeah.
Just, not exactly a success story.
Not at all. And yet somehow he ends up this like literary icon. It makes you wonder, how does that happen?
Right. What's the secret there?
Well, the way our sources explain it is fascinating. His success wasn't really despite all that failure. You could almost argue it was because of it.
How so?
Because he apparently just stopped trying to be someone he wasn't. He just embraced the messiness, the discomfort, the suck, as the book we're going to talk about puts it.
Oh, okay.
And he just wrote. He just did his thing anyway. So that don't trot on the tombstone. It's not really about giving up. No, it's more like this deep kind of ironic challenge.
Yeah.
It's saying, try differently. Just be you authentically. No apologies.
Huh. Embracing the suck, being authentic, that actually leads us perfectly into today's deep dive.
It does.
We're looking at Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck.
Right.
And look, if you're expecting the usual self-help stuff, endless positivity, chase your happiness, rainbows everywhere,
Yeah. Thinking
this is definitely not that.
not even close. Manson isn't playing that game.
Yeah.
The sources basically say he's here to like slap the fake positivity out of your system.
Uh-huh. Okay, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, the book, it's not really about finding happiness in the traditional sense or even conventional success.
So what is it about then?
It's about getting, well, brutally honest. Facing uncomfortable truths about what you really care about.
Mm-hmm.
Not just what you say you care about, It's about figuring out where you're wasting your energy, because we all have limited energy, right?
Yeah.
And stopping that. So you can actually put that energy into the stuff that genuinely, truly matters to you.
So how does that work? How do you make that shift? That's what we're going to unpack today, right?
Exactly. We'll get into some core ideas from this deep dive.
Like this Bukowski principle you mentioned, this idea of like choosing your pain. Sounds intense.
It is, but it's crucial. And also, how to escape what Manson calls the feedback loop from hell.
The feedback loop from hell. Okay, gotta hear about that.
Oh, yeah. It's that feeling of suffering about your suffering,
Yeah.
getting anxious about being anxious, that kind of thing.
Oh, I know that one. Yeah.
Oh, we'll get into that. And also, how your values, the things you choose to prioritize, they aren't just like nice ideas. They actually shape your whole reality.
Wow. Okay. So the mission here for you listening is basically to get a really good handle on this mindset fast. See how it might, totally flip your perspective on things.
Let's start with that Bukowski principle then.
Yeah.
Really dig in. It's not about being indifferent, like nothing matters. That's not it at all.
Okay, so it's not apathy.
No. It's a very deliberate choice. It's about being okay with being different. Being okay with, well, discomfort.
Right.
Can't really avoid pain in life, can you? It's impossible.
Seems that way.
So the goal isn't to dodge it. It's to consciously choose which pain, which problems you're willing to deal with, and then, crucially, own those problems.
Take responsibility.
Yeah. Think about a marathon runner. They don't exactly enjoy hitting the wall, right? That pain sucks.
Definitely not.
But they choose that potential pain because they want to finish the race. That's the goal that matters more.
Okay, I see the parallel. Bukowski didn't succeed despite his struggles.
Right. He found his voice because he embraced his reality, his truth. He wrote whether people liked it or not, whether he got famous or not. He owned his particular brand of discomfort.
That makes sense, choosing the pain you're willing to endure for something bigger. But what about when pain just happens, like stuff you didn't choose?
Yeah, good question.
Or even worse, when you start feeling bad about feeling bad. Like you said, the feedback loop. I've totally been there.
Yeah.
You feel anxious, then you feel anxious about feeling anxious.
Or guilty for feeling sad or angry about feeling angry.
Yeah.
Manson calls it the feedback loop from hell, and it's such a common trap.
It really is. It just spirals.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's insidious, like you said. Your reaction to a feeling becomes this whole other negative feeling, maybe even worse than the first one.
So how do you break that cycle?
Well, the core insight here, and it's really interesting, is that you often can't control that first feeling, that initial wave of sadness or fear or whatever. It just hits you sometimes.
Right, it just appears.
Exactly. But what you can control, and this is what Manson really emphasizes, is how you respond to it.
Okay, your reaction.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So instead of trying to eliminate all problems, which let's be honest is pretty much impossible.
Definitely feels that way sometimes.
The key is to shift your focus. Start choosing better problems. Because anything truly meaningful, a great relationship, achieving something difficult at work, personal growth, it always involves some kind of struggle or discomfort.
There's always a cost, basically.
Pretty much. So it forces you to ask that really hard question. What pain am I actually willing to put up with for something I deeply care about?
That question, what pain are you willing to endure, that ties directly into values, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's all about what you value. Manson uses this powerful story, a guy who lost everything. Job, family, status, the works.
Rock bottom.
Totally rock bottom. He was crushed, obviously. But in that moment, he had this brutal realization.
What was it?
That his values were, well, completely messed up. Toxic, basically. He'd spent his whole life chasing external stuff, approval from others, money, status symbols.
Things outside himself.
Exactly. Not genuine meaning, not internal satisfaction, just external validation.
Ooh, that hits home. It really makes you think, what is driving you?
It does. Because if your main value is, say, always being right.
Uh-oh. I know people like that.
Right. Then every disagreement feels like an attack. Every conversation is a battle you have to win. It's exhausting and, frankly, alienating.
Yeah, it sounds stressful.
But Manson suggests, what if you shift your values? What if you prioritize something like growth or curiosity or honesty?
How does that change things?
Well, then challenges aren't threats anymore. They become chances to learn something, to get better. A disagreement isn't a fight, it's an opportunity to understand a different perspective.
Okay, I see. It reframes the whole situation.
Totally. He really pushes us to choose better values. Values that are internal, things we can actually control, things that don't depend on what other people think or what happens outside us.
Like what kind of values?
He gives examples like taking responsibility, owning your choices and reactions, honesty, being truthful with yourself and others, even when it's hard, resilience, bouncing back from setbacks. These empower you.
Instead of making you dependent on, getting praise or avoiding criticism.
Exactly. They put you back in the driver's seat of your own life, fundamentally.
So as we kind of wrap up our thinking on this deep dive, it really crystallizes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck, it's absolutely not about just being apathetic or walking around literally not caring about anything.
No, not at all. That would be missing the point entirely.
It's actually the opposite, isn't it? It's about being incredibly deliberate, almost fierce about what you choose to care about.
Fierce is a good word. It's intentional. Where do you choose to invest your limited energy, your limited fecks, as Manson puts it?
Right. That's the core message.
Absolutely. And understanding that gives you this huge sense of liberation, this massive shift in perspective.
How so?
Because you realize true power doesn't come from trying to avoid problems or pain. It comes from consciously choosing your problems, embracing the discomfort that's inevitably part of anything worthwhile.
And knowing you can handle it.
Yeah. Yes. And also realizing, look, you can't always control that first feeling that pops up, anger, sadness, whatever, but you 100% control your response. That's your domain.
Taking ownership of the reaction.
Exactly. And then consciously picking those better internal empowering values we talked about: curiosity, responsibility, honesty, resilience. Doing that fundamentally changes your reality.
It moves you away from that constant need for external approval, that endless, exhausting chase.
Precisely.
You know, the really freeing takeaway here seems to be you don't have to win every argument.
No.
You don't need to impress every person you meet.
Definitely not.
And you absolutely don't need to be happy and positive 24/7. That's not realistic.
It's not. And trying to be is part of the problem Manson identifies. Real growth, real freedom. It starts when you drop the act.
Drop the act.
Yeah. Stop trying to project this perfect image. Just get real. Be honest with yourself, about yourself, with the world. That's where the strength is.
Okay, so maybe a final thought for everyone listening to mull over.
Yeah, let's leave them with something.
Building on all this, maybe ask yourself this. What pain are you genuinely willing to endure for something that feels truly meaningful to you?
That's the question.
And tied to that, how might letting go of that need to look perfect and instead embracing your actual authentic self, flaws and all of, how might that be the most powerful choice you make about what you decide to give a feck about?